Today on the Dennis Michael Lynch podcast, I'm going to have a guest for you. He is sensational. He's coming from the UK. He is a Muslim, and he is hitting the bell, the warning bell, against radical Islam across the world, children being trafficked, and what is ultimately happening to the United States of America. And it's not a good thing. This is one of those you want to listen from start to finish, and it's all unfiltered.
Dennis Michael Lynch gives you his word, and he will never let you down. He will always fight for America.
The only one who really puts his money where his mouth is Dennis Michael Lynch.
Hello, I'm Dennis Michael Lynch, and I thank you for joining me today. You're about to meet a gentleman named Raja Miah, Rajamiah. He is a soldier in ways that I would consider a soldier to be. He is trying to fight the good fight that we fight here on this program. He is screaming at the top of his lungs about the dangers of radical Islam, the takeover, the political takeover that has happened in the UK, which is starting to happen here in the United States. Just take a look at what is going on in New York. And I think this is probably going to be one of the most eye-opening interviews you've heard in a long time with regard to how dangerous things are right now for the United States of America. And if we do not wake up, how it is that we will lose our country, no doubt whatsoever. So without further ado, here is Raja Miah. Raja, I appreciate you joining me today. And if I'm not mistaken, you're in the UK, correct?
I am. My pleasure, DML. Thank you so much for inviting me, brother.
You got it, pal. So I want to start this conversation off by explaining to you, in part, why I thought this was so important to have you on. And I also want to explain in part where it is I come from on certain topics, because I don't want you to think I'm an adversary. I'm a fan. But there's one thing that I'm never going to break, and it's because I lived 9/11. So I want to have you on here for two reasons. Number one is a large part of my career, not so much with Pakistani Muslims or Muslims of any range. I have always been fighting for the trafficking of young children here in the United States to stop. And one of the things that we've seen in the United States to perpetuate that sort of horrible, ugly thing called trafficking is that we've let our borders stay open for the longest time. I mean, Donald J. Trump has kind of put an end to that. It's a temporary end because Congress hasn't done enough to secure it in place for long term. But I have donated a lot of my money. I've donated a lot of my time to try to help organizations who try to stop trafficking. And I've always found it an atrocity that the American government would allow open borders and mass migration into the United States when they know that it is also a path for grooming, trafficking, violence to minors. With that put out there, I wanted you to explain why it is and what it is that you've done to discover what's happening over in the UK with that same sort of problem. Secondly, part of this conversation is that I have an incredible bias because I ran from the Twin Towers on 9/11, because I've done 4 different immigration films in my time. The last one is actually on Amazon Prime, has been watched millions of times all over the world. We are a Christian nation here in the United States of America, but we allow anybody to come here and practice. And I have no problem with anybody coming here and practicing their religion. I don't care who you sleep with, who you pray to, until it is that you try to dominate or use a form of submission to where you're going to take my nation and try to upend it to form with your religious beliefs. And that's what I believe is happening in a large way, especially what we just saw happen in New York City when it comes to the Islamic world wanting to take over the United States. So those are the two conversations I want to have with you. I'll let you choose which one of those two we discuss first. I would kind of nudge you a little bit to take the trafficking part first, because I think that is a large part of your passion. So have at it, brother.
Thank you. And you're not going to get an argument from me at all. To give you some context, I think it's valuable. I am a brown-faced Muslim living in the United Kingdom. I'm a product of multiculturalism. Whether it's worked or not, I would argue it hasn't worked in this country. It's failed. It's a failed experiment comprehensively. And I find myself very regularly questioning the beliefs and values of many of the people who raised me, and also reflecting on my own. So I live with this. Yeah, I live with this contradiction all the time. Is what I'd say first of all, and this pressure, a pressure I invite on myself, if I'm honest, because if we can't ask questions of ourselves and our own beliefs and our own values, what sort of people are we? We first of all have got to start with ourselves, haven't we, DML? So that's where I start with this.
Let me chime in and say something to you. I thank you for starting it off that way, because I'm a Catholic, and I remember when the entire storyline of priests abusing young boys came to head. And I remember being a young boy myself, going to Catholic school, and I watched it happen firsthand. And I was highly critical of my own religion and the people who were the leaders of it. So I'm so happy to see that you are of that mindset. And I also want to tell people that although you're in the UK, you're originally from Bangladesh. Is that correct?
My parents are. Well, my father had the luxury of owning multiple passports. The story of my family and coming to this country, I think, is pertinent when we talk about open borders and all of the rest of that. I quantify it by sharing with you that the tradition in my family was the eldest went to serve, as is the tradition in many families, I would imagine. And of course, my father grew up in a period when the Second World War broke out, and it was the duty in our family for the eldest to go and serve. So off he went, walked all the way to Calcutta, got on a boat, served in the Royal Navy, and at the end of the war, instead of taking him back home, they dropped him off in Liverpool and told him to make his own way home. So that's the context, and I think I share these stories not just for light relief, but it gives you an impression of the world that shaped me and the values of the people who made me the man I am. Okay, so okay. I think I want to put that in context. So when people say a Bangladeshi origin, I say absolutely, but this is the journey. Yeah, this is how the family ended up in this country. And 1945, United Kingdom wasn't a very easy place to leave and head all the way back to India at that time. And of course, India became Pakistan, and then Pakistan split and became Bangladesh and Pakistan. So, yeah.
Do you consider the UK your home?
I describe myself as British, always have done. I have known no other home, so, and more specifically, the town I come from, I spent 20 years of my life in public service. I sat in rooms with multiple prime ministers, secretaries of state. That's what I did. The government sent me around the world to look and inform and shape and try and influence all of the people that you and I have concerns with and about.
Okay.
And that's the career I did. And I came back to a small northern mill town for two reasons. One was I had a very young daughter at the time. The relationship with her mother had broken down. She'd come back to the countryside on the foothills of Oldham called Saddleworth. It's a very lovely part of the world. And I, as a father and raised the way I was, knew I had a responsibility to be part of my daughter's life and raise her. So there was that on one hand. And the other hand was my mother had been diagnosed with what was terminal cancer. And I also accepted and wanted, not just accepted, wanted to make sure that I saw to her end of life care as best as I could. So those were the reasons I came back. So what you have here, DML, is a bloke who looks like me with a set of skills that are rare in the places I come from, coming back into a mill town and finding himself almost immediately put in a place where a friend's wife contacted me regarding the chairman of the local mosque. And the chairman of the local mosque was a convicted sex offender. And all of the authorities had allowed that to happen because of his political influence. And she said to me, Raja, you're back. I need some help. How can I turn down someone who I've known on an issue such as this? And of course, if I had a vested interest in this, it was my mosque. It's the mosque that did my mother's funeral prayers many years afterwards from when this first took place. Okay. And I had a duty to help clean it up. The police got in touch. All sorts of things happened. And it turned out he was a very powerful man. And he was a very powerful man connected to a whole host of local politicians because he delivered a block vote. And in exchange, favors were done. No more complicated than that. It's the story of political corruption is the same across the world. I got rid of him. I helped get rid of him. Using the skills I had, the knowledge and the expertise I had, the relationships, the networks, all of that, got rid of him. And it was a very public campaign over social media because they shut it down. The authorities shut the conversation down. No one would have it in the newspapers. No one would have it in any of the public spaces that they controlled. But we controlled, or we had certain influence over Facebook. So we were running battles with Facebook's banning policy. I'd regularly get suspended for 7 days, 10 days, 30 days. Running battles with the police who wanted to come and speak with me about what I was doing and how problematic it was. It didn't matter. We got rid of him. Job done. I was thinking, okay, I can go back to doing what I came home to do. I didn't want to get involved in any of this. I'll be honest. Why would I? I had enough on my plate. I had a 3-year-old at the time. I was picking up from nursery and having fun. Having some fun with a 3-year-old daughter. I'm an older father, having so much, and they're a blessing. So I was having so much fun with that and spending as much time with my mother during her chemotherapy. Anyone who's been through chemo will know how arduous an event it is. So I was doing all of that. And then what happened was a gentleman, and I didn't know him at all, a man called Warren Bates, kept contacting me. And I'm reading these posts and I'm thinking this is a madman. I only learned afterwards that he left school when he was 12 years old to go and work in the mines. So that, he was a child who went off to work in the mines, came up through the trade union movement, old-fashioned white working class, Labour Party stalwart, betrayed. Like so many in my country, betrayed by the very party that was supposed to be their voice. And I went to see him because he kept persevering. I went to see him. And the long story short, he put in front of me a bundle of papers. And that bundle of papers caused me immense alarm. And it was of the gang rape of children in my town, being dragged off the streets in broad daylight into these, we call them shisha bars. They're like these smoking dens. Rooms were rented out by the hour. The windows were blocked, cameras set up, all that sort of stuff had gone on. And child after child was being dragged off the streets. The police knew about it. The MP knew about it. And the council, the local authority, the people who are tasked to safeguard children in my town knew about it. And all of them, in partnership with the British Broadcasting Corporation, the BBC, who've just been done recently. Yesterday, the head man had to resign after the BBC got caught doctoring video footage of Donald Trump. So, this is how far back it goes and how consistent it is. And this goes back to 2012, the paperwork. And this man, Warren Bates, and his associate, his friend, a man called Huey MacDonald. Huey MacDonald was also a former politician, former councillor, also the chief magistrate in the town. Very respectable man, very distinguished man. Not in the business of making things up and not in the business of saying, if he said something or done something, you'd accept the reason why, even if you disagreed with it. Both of them sidelined, ostracized, the local newspapers, all part complicit in what had took place. And they said to me pretty much this: you have a duty to make this right. You've come back to the town. You've cleaned up the local mosque. You have skills that we don't have. You can navigate this political space in a way no one else can. We need your help. And that's where it started.
So let me ask you a few questions about this, just going back and forth. So this way the audience has a greater sense for what's happening over there in the UK. I mean, look, Raja, you know this. You've been around long enough. We're both the same age. The media will do all they can to sensationalize topics. Sometimes they'll sensationalize it in the sense that we'll try to make it sound worse than it really is. And then other times they'll sensationalize it in the sense of making it sound as if it's no big deal. It's being exaggerated by those with an agenda. I want to hear from you, whether it's true or untrue. When you look at the UK of yesterday, and I don't care what yesterday means. You could go back 20 years if you want, 30 years, it doesn't matter. If you go back to the UK of yesterday and you look at the UK of today, I think the impression from most people who are on the right, meaning conservative, will say that the UK has totally lost its way. It no longer is what it used to be. It has been taken over by extremism, mostly from the Muslim world, and that in the Muslim world, in many different countries throughout the world, it is okay, it is permissible to treat women like they're subjects versus your equal, and that only metastasizes when you're talking about younger kids. Now, I know we started this conversation off by me telling you that priests and cardinals in the Catholic religion were taking advantage of young, vulnerable boys. So it's not like this is a Muslim-only problem. But when I focus in on the UK and I say what changed it from yesterday to today, from a cultural standpoint, and especially narrowing in on the gang rape and the trafficking of young children, all things point back to a invasion, if you want to call it that, of migrants, most of them Muslim. Is that a fair assessment? Is that been sensationalized by the Breitbarts of the world? Or is that been the real thing that's been happening and it's been squashed by the mainstream media into being something that says it's really not happening? They're trying to sensationalize it. It's anti-Muslim rhetoric.
Of course, squashed by the mainstream media is... No, DML, you need to listen to this. You don't go far enough, brother. It's worse than you describe it.
Okay.
You don't go far enough. What's happened here is the industrial scale gang rape of this nation's children. Multi-generational. From what we've been able to track, from the work we've done as a consequence, and now there's so many of us, we have an army here of people working alongside us. We're at the beginning of this. This was deemed as some sort of far-right bandwagon, the terrain that the racists occupy to unfairly attack the joys of multicultural utopia that they want to promote and, believe in. I do genuinely believe that they believe in it, irrespective of everything around them. So no, you don't go far enough, because hand in hand with everything that you've described is the state's complicity in facilitating what's took place. And the reason why, or the main reason why, is who the victims were. And almost exclusively in the United Kingdom, the victims were white, not just white on its own, but working class girls. So they were seen as a price worth paying for whatever belief system that these people wanted to promote and facilitate in terms of this multicultural experiment. So when I say you don't go far enough, everything you say, of course, is true in terms of the beliefs and the values and the cultures that were brought into this country. All of that is valid. There's more to it than what you make reference to, and I'll try and explain some of that. But hand in hand with that was the complicity and the partnership of the main political parties. Now, in the United Kingdom, we have two main political parties, the Conservatives and the Labour Party. The Labour Party is heavily dependent on the bloc Muslim vote across the country. So it's in their interest to get into bed with these people. And they did get into bed with these people. Since we exposed this, since Elon Musk is who we are responsible to for making this last significant step forward, because up to that point we were losing.
Let me ask you a question, just so that my audience knows. The Labour Party in the UK is the equivalent of the Democrat Party in the United States?
As close as. If I was going to do a very simple, as close as.
Yep. But continue.
The Conservatives were in power for 14 years, have been in power for 14 years. And not only did they do nothing, they also actively participated in the cover-up. Now, they did it for different reasons. And it boils down to this. Their voter base is from a demographic that isn't historically the white working class. So they didn't care. They didn't care enough about these children. And a former prime minister, Boris Johnson, is on record in a radio interview claiming that any inquiries or investigations into the now confirmed industrial scale gang rape of our nation's children would be money being spoffed up a wall, wasted. Yeah, would be wasted money. The Conservative government released, we forced them, over 100,000 of us signed petitions and stuff. We forced them to release a Home Office report into the demographic profiles of these rape gangs. And the report they released was doctored. It was a work of fiction. It took us another 4 years or 5 years to prove that what they'd released was a work of fiction. So the state was complicit in the cover-up.
So let me ask you a question about that before we go too deep. So if the target was the white female, working female at that.
Working class, yes.
Yes. Now, I want you to take no offense to this. Stacy, who does my bookings, she suggested you. And I said, okay, fine. And I haven't had enough time to look deep into, I watched some of your videos, but I have not gone deep. So I'm guessing here. I could be wrong. Is it wrong of me to say that the reason why you target the white woman, the working female, is a culmination of two things? Number one, that there is just a general hatred for the white woman. And so it makes it a little bit easier. But number two, and maybe the bigger reason why, is because if you gang rape a white woman and you destroy her life, which you inevitably will at some level, she will be discouraged from then going out and having a family. Am I going far-fetched there? I'm trying to understand, why are you going after white women specifically?
When I look at this, it may be difficult for your American audience to grasp this, but the notion of class in our country is extremely significant. If this had happened to middle-class white women, so the establishment, the women who run the TV stations, the women who write of the demographic background, who write in the broadsheet journal, newspapers and stuff, there would have been an outcry. We had something called a Me Too sort of movement here. You'd have the same, yeah. So there's a demographic of women who jumped on that. I'm not judging, but if you jump on that and you're supportive of that, then why aren't you supportive of these lesser, deemed to be lesser class white women? So one is that there's that internal prejudice within our own white within our own white communities in this country, where class is a factor, was a factor. And working class girls, these are the girls from the families of, who work in factories or are cleaning jobs, that sort of stuff. They are held in contempt. And of course, it is these very people who raised me in the communities where I was raised. So I have a natural disposition to want to stand alongside these people, because I've experienced they're a more authentic group of people. If they've got something to say to you, they'll say it. Sometimes the words don't come out in a politically correct way, but I'll tell you what, if you fell over on the street or something happened to you, they'd pick you up and they'd make sure you're okay. So the wholesome, and they were targeted for that. Now the second element of this, and you talk about a term that I contextualize using this phrase, rape genocide. So it is the actual use of rape as a weapon of war to eliminate a demographic of people.
Yep.
And you say, Raja, have I gone too far? You haven't gone too far, because I'm a history graduate by profession. You haven't gone too far, because the historical context of this is that it was used as rape genocide in the formation of Pakistan. People have tried to have me arrested for this, but you can't arrest someone for sharing historical context, proven historical context. The historical context of Pakistan in 1947, when it was first created, was they needed to ethnically cleanse entire segments of the Punjab, areas that became modern-day Pakistan. They ethnically cleansed those areas, DML, by raping the Hindu and Sikh women and girls. Matter of public record, matter of fact. In 1971, when war broke out between East and West Pakistan and what became modern-day Bangladesh, over a 9-month period, the Pakistani army and the militia sent there, validated by the clerics in the mosques, the very same imams who, after subsequent generations, became the madrasas that you guys were fighting against the Taliban. Yeah, exactly the same lot. They sanctioned the rape of the Bangladeshi female population with a view of not just genocide, but genocide in the sense of raping every girl and woman possible, so that the entire race would be wiped out and what remained would be theirs. This is historical fact. The official figures with the United Nations are 400,000 girls and women over a period of 9 months. The real figures, as we know, the official figures and the real figures, there's usually a discrepancy. The real figures are closer to 1 million. Now, why I share this with you is that the rape genocide that formed Pakistan and the rape genocide that the clerics signed off, that took place over a 9-month period in what became modern-day Bangladesh. Those very men who were responsible for that, no one was ever convicted, no one was ever charged. Those very men, that entire nation that was formed Pakistan, is the nation that now moved into the United Kingdom in the 60s and 70s. Now, let me ask you something, DML. If they grew up on stories of rape as part of nation building and spreading the caliphate and jihad and all of that, and they did it to the Hindus and the Sikhs, then they did it to the Bangladeshis that they considered to be an inferior race. Do you think they came to the United Kingdom and stopped, brother?
No, they accelerated.
Yes.
And that is, and the reason why I said I didn't watch your videos, I made that as a prelude because I don't want people to think that I just wanted to have you on because it's an echo chamber. Okay. So when I look at this, when I look at what you're talking about, and the fact that the Labor Party is not doing anything about this to stop it because they think in their mind that the way for them to retain power is to be on the side of these horrible, horrible people. And that's the way that you're going to get votes. We're dealing with the same thing here in the United States, to where Barack Obama back in 2008, and then when he ran again in election for 2012, kept on repeating that a victory for him meant a fundamental transformation of the United States of America. Now think about that for a second, Raja. When you take about a fundamental transformation, if you say to me, Dennis, you would look a little better if you wore a sports jacket during our interview than not, all right, I'll change my wardrobe. But if you say to me, Dennis, you would come off much better as Denise, well, then that's a fundamental transformation. And so what did Barack Obama mean by that? Barack Obama meant that the way that you fundamentally transform a nation is that you change its people. In the same way that you would change me from Dennis to Denise, that's a fundamental transformation. So how do you do that? You allow mass immigration into your country unvetted. You allow illegal immigration to take over your country. You don't know who you're getting. You don't hold them accountable for their crimes. You talk about them in such a way that you feel horrible for them. You try to force somebody like me to have empathy, and in some cases, white guilt. And therefore, if you don't want the mass migration coming in from Iran or Turkey or Pakistan, if you don't want mass illegal immigration to be coming in from South America, Central America, Mexico, you are, Dennis, and all of your ilk, you are a racist. And so they use those words to try to deflect what it is that they're really doing. And what they're trying to do, Raja, and they've been doing a great job at it, is they are trying to create the United States of America into a left and far left nation. And now they're taking it a step further. You know, when people talk about cheap votes, the argument that they'll give me back, and this is a little different, I think, in the United States than, of course, in the UK, but they'll say, well, illegals can't vote, so don't tell me that they're taking people in here for the sake of voting. Well, first of all, they do vote, but let's even just say it's so minute it doesn't move the needle. The bigger look on this for the United States is, A, those people who you allowed in here are going to have children. They're going to have children at greater numbers than the Dennises of the world are. That's statistically proven. So their children are future voting Democrats. And then secondly, the way that our country works is that your congressional representation, the people who represent you in Congress, how many representatives a state is given is based on the general population, not the citizen point of view, not the citizen count. So when a census comes back out in 2030, we're going to see that California, New York, they're going to get so many more people in Congress of the leftist side that we will never win another election again. And then when you take a look at what's happening in New York and Dearborn, Michigan, and the various different places across the country, we are getting inundated with people who are Muslim, who believe, because they tie together, Raja, they tie together the political side of Islam and the religion of Islam, and they want it to be where that is now the rule of the world, the rule of the land. And I've been screaming about this to no end, and it sometimes feels like it's happening on deaf ears, because today the president of the United States continues to do deals around the world with Muslim nations, and on top of that has a terrorist from Syria today dining with him. And I just want to pull my hair out, because I think people are missing the message that if we don't stop this now, we are going to become New York City, and New York City has already shown that it's going to become London. And I don't know, please tell me if I'm over-exaggerating this, tell me, or tell my audience that we are on the cusp of being what you have over there, not only just from child rape, but also from how it is that the culture of the UK and London is nowhere near what it once was yesterday.
We have these things in our country that the state has pandered to, called Sharia courts. So this is a parallel legal system allowed by those who know better, and they facilitate things like Muslim marriages, divorces, all sorts of stuff, Dennis. And I am at odds with these people, and have been from the outset, because their values and their belief system and their interpretation of the Quran, whether it's right, whether it's wrong, I don't want to get drawn into that, but their interpretation is that men can have 4 wives, women are property, sex slaves are allowed. You can marry someone once they start their period or something like 11 years old, 12 years old, and a 70-year-old man can do that. All of those things, Dennis, are at complete odds with our values, whether it's the United States or whether it's the United Kingdom or across Western Europe. Yet we pander to this bullshit. We pander to this, and we do so believing in having been indoctrinated over generations, a group of people who are now in influential positions, that this multicultural utopia is what we are striving for, that all cultures are equal, and that we can work in partnership with these people. These people want the caliphate. Dennis. No more complicated than that. They don't want to live alongside us. And people like me, you can say, or your viewers can say, well, he's of them. Mate, before they kill you, they'll be killing me. And killing everyone who kills me.
Explain to me, I mean, not to me, explain to my audience when you say caliphate, what that actually means.
Well, it's the end of day sort of argument is that the Muslim, there'll be a Muslim world, a nation, a global Muslim nation, run according to Sharia law, very strict interpretation of Sharia law, and that their role is to expand the caliphate into the Western world. They want to take over. It's no more complicated than that. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's not a far right. There are the Muslims who speak out are few and far between, and the Muslims who oppose this are actually more in number. But they live in those sorts of communities where if they do speak out, all hell will break loose. They will be ostracized, attacked in ways which you and I can only imagine. And what you've seen alongside that, and you saw that in New York recently, where you're going down this dangerous road like we've gone down within London, where there's a bizarre partnership between the left, there's a sort of trans supporting left, the gay rights left, and the Islamists. Now, let me tell you something very clearly. The Islamists will hang the gays after they've hanged people like me. And for the trans people, they'll burn them as if they were witches. They're not in this together. They're not your friends. And we need to come up with a response on how we deal with this. And the beginning of this is having the confidence to know who you are and what you're not, and what you're going to do to stop yourself from those people taking over. And we're too polite.
I was just going to say to you, Raja, I was going to say, the biggest crime on the right is that we fall trap to the political correctness, that we fall trap to the name calling. When somebody uses the word racist, right, they always take it out of context. Truth of the matter is, anybody watching this right now sees that I'm pearly white and that you're brown skinned. If I were a racist, I wouldn't even allow you on my show. I would not have a conversation with you because I would think that you are so less than me that I'm not having this guy on. And yet, because I will bring out the drums and bang on them so loud when I am concerned about Islam and what they are trying to do when they talk about taking over the West, they don't even hide it. They just say blatantly, we're going to take over. And then when you point that out, either A, they try to use you're a racist and my side backs off. Whoa, I'm not a racist. And then all of a sudden I start justifying things like, what are you talking about? I went to dinner with Raja. I think he's a great guy. I'm not a racist. He's one of my best friends. And you get on the defensive. That's number one. And then number two is that because we want to avoid that sort of conversation, we turn a blind eye to it and we just say, well, I'll move somewhere else. And we're at a point right now where I think we are basically mirroring what we've seen in the UK. And that is, in the UK, the number one name for a young boy when he's born is Mohammed. Now, I don't have a problem with you naming your kid Mohammed if that's where you live, but I don't want my culture to be changed because you left somewhere else, came to my place, and then took it over. I mean, why people aren't seeing this? And then what they call you is they call you a conspiracy theorist. They call you this, they call you that. And my side shuts up and backs off. And I think that is the biggest mistake we make.
And it's our fault.
I know.
Yeah. And this is what gets me. I'm happy for and I'll be first in line to criticize political Islam, all of that in terms of some of the cultural traditions of people who've come to this country and want to change this country to reflect where they've come from. Hold on. It's our job to say, no, this is who we are. These are our beliefs and our values. And you adapt to our way of life, or this isn't a home for you. It's not a complicated argument. It's not an unreasonable position to hold, Dennis. We're at the moment, we're having conversations, finally. And in the main, it's thanks to an MP here called Rupert Lowe, an independent MP, who was with the reform team. But, you know, like so many on the right, unfortunately, we fall out amongst ourselves too quickly to mobilize an effective response to this left, who are very well resourced and very well, you know, they're organized and have been for a long time. So he's pushing for this remigration narrative, and remigration means send back foreign criminals. It's nothing more complicated than that in one sense. It's not even being debated by people who should debate it because they're scared of being branded racist. Hold on. A foreign-born criminal, someone comes to my country from somewhere else and commits crimes here, rapes a child here, commits armed robbery here. Why am I wasting my time with that person? Automatic deportation.
Yes.
It's not even a difficult argument to sell to the public, is it?
No.
And they won't do it. Or if they do it, they pander it in such a way where you know it won't get to an outcome because it's just sound bites.
Raja, you know, when I just talked about this in a show, I think it was last week or the week before, I was going over the statistics. Actually, I was on somebody else's podcast. And I explained to them, you know, the UK now and many different places throughout Europe, Germany being one of them, has this new policy that if you insult somebody, if you insult another religion and you do it even online, we're going to come and arrest you. And the amount of arrests for people who have posted anti-Muslim commentary has been in the many thousands. And meanwhile, anti-Christian commentary, I think there have been about 20 to 30 arrests. So
let me give you a real life example of that.
Go ahead.
I have been arrested multiple times on this journey. My home has been raided repeatedly by the police. I'm not a criminal, never have been. The last queen put a medal on my chest for the services to my country. So that's my background and my context. Dawn raided my house repeatedly, arrested me as a racist and far-right activist. Of course, every case collapsed in court against me. And when I complained about people who were issuing death threats, posting pictures of my address online, pictures of my family members, naming the school that my daughter went to with a view of trying to, you know, incite hatred against me. Mosques on official letter-headed papers were effectively issuing fatwas against me. When the police finally acted, and it took me a long time to get them to act, when they finally acted and they arrested one of them, just one of the gang, they let him go because he promised he'd never do it again.
Oh, good God.
This is a man who's openly incited my murder, attacks on my family, made reference to raping my 7-year-old niece and and shared her address online. And the police let him go because he promised he wouldn't do it again.
You know, the stories, my friend, the stories of the woman gets raped and then says something bad about her rapist, only for her to then be held in jail, if not even for an hour, equally to that of the rapist. Or in some cases, there was one in Germany where she got a longer sentence than the rapist himself. I mean,
we've had people arrested and charged, children. The police have come into a house and into a rape den, seen a child, a 12-year-old, 13-year-old child with knickers around her ankles, crying her eyes out. Half a dozen men surrounding the grubby mattress. They arrested her for prostitution.
I mean, this is at a level of insanity that it's almost as if you believe for a moment that this is unbelievable, in the sense that this has got to be a script of a bad book. And it's not. It's happening in real time in front of our eyes. And, you know, I one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on was so this way you can scream at the top of your lungs to the U.S.
This is
citizens.
real. This is real.
And this is coming my way, if I'm not mistaken.
It is coming your way, and when it comes your way, they won't be They won't be going on the same journey they went in Europe or in London because they've learned what to do and they can fast track. And what they'll be doing in your part of the world will be faster, more effective, and at a more, devastating level than anything we've seen here.
Yeah.
And sorry, brother, you guys have got to mobilize, organize, and your leaders have got to have the confidence to reflect your will. And if they don't, we're in, there's no half measures here. We've got to do what we've got to do. And if we're not, they're going to win.
So look, my feeling here about with the U.S. is that quite often we start making this about one person instead of the success of our country. And I'm talking specifically about Trump. Now, I voted for Trump 3 times proudly. I lost my television show on Newsmax, the #1 show, because I would not stop defending him and slamming on Hillary Clinton. I mean, I have done everything I can to, you want to say, mobilize people. I've converted a lot of Democrats over to pro-Trump voters. At the same time as I feel my responsibility as a person in the media and my responsibility as a American citizen is to call them as I see them, because our country and our success is much bigger than the success for one man. And I have more respect for Trump and his fight than any other person I've ever met in my life. I mean, the guy gets shot in the ear and he jumps up and says, "Fight, fight, fight."
Yeah.
You can't make that kind of stuff up. That's an American through and through. But when I see him making mistakes, because none of us walk on water, when I see him making mistakes, I feel it is our job to call him out. And so if you disagree with me here, please push back on me. But give me the floor for 2 minutes to explain my concern.
Okay. I'm listening.
What I see the Islamic world and the Democrats doing is slowly but surely filling in a void that we are creating on our side. The biggest names in conservatism here in the United States of America, I could listen to you, but maybe the biggest of them all is Tucker Carlson. And I know Tucker. He used to interview me all the time on Fox News when he was a host. And he has gone so deep into the anti-Israel rhetoric that it is impossible sometimes for me not to believe that he's not getting paid by somebody who says, or threatened even better, by somebody who says, if you don't continue down that road, you're going to have yourself an issue. I can't understand it. Now, Raja, I want to be very clear on something. My position is this. If I have to choose between Israel and the Muslim world around it, I'm always going to choose Israel simply because I think they are in survival mode, where it is that the Muslim world is in domination mode. If you take that the next step further, and I have $100 to my name, and I've got hungry American children, and I've got hungry Israeli children, I am taking $100 of food and I am giving it to my own. Not because I hate the Israelis, but because I'm going to take care of my own. I am truly America first. Doesn't mean I hate other kids. It means I have a responsibility to my own. So that positions you to understand Dennis Michael Lynch. I see Tucker doing this, and he is doing the work, as far as I'm concerned, of the Muslim world, of the Qatars, of the Saudi Arabias, of Iran, of Syria, that wants the U.S. to hate upon Israel. So this way, eventually we just give up on them and they get taken out. And then it's too late to change anything. Take that the next step, and I look at the fact that my president, who I voted for 3 times, is taking a free airplane from Qatar, who gives more lobbying money than any other, than any Israel pact there is. We've got Qatar, Saudi Arabia, all dumping hundreds of millions of dollars into our colleges here, trying to indoctrinate our kids. And I sit there and I say, what are we missing? Why is my president doing an AI deal with Qatar? Why is he doing an AI deal with Saudi Arabia? Does he not get what these people are doing? And so if I'm missing this, I want you to tell me where I'm missing it. So this way I can sort of rethink my positions. But I just see it right now that we are being infiltrated on the right. We're the last stance of normalcy here for the United States of America. And we are being infiltrated where our biggest voices are all over the map, infighting and creating division in a party. So this way it can be backfilled by those who see our weakness.
When in the United Kingdom, one of the many steps to the mess we now find ourselves in, where radical Islam is now represented in the House of Commons, we have 4 sectarian MPs, 4 Islamist MPs, I describe them as, who got elected off the back of Gaza and an anti-Israeli mandate. One of the steps on that journey was how the Middle Eastern countries, the Saudis in particular, and the Wahhabis, worked out that they could fund all the mosques in the United Kingdom. So the mosques historically were terraced houses, local community funded. They were fine. You know, there were places you just went and prayed. If someone was ill, you went and prayed for them. That sort of stuff. They were just genuinely authentic community assets to have. And what these guys came along with was the millions. And they built these super mosques across the country. Magnificent buildings, millions and millions invested. And along with the money came the requirement to teach their interpretation, their curriculum, for want of a better term, of the Quran and the Hadiths. And over a period of probably no more than 15 years, we went from the mosque being a nice little, thing at the corner of the street where the elderly went and prayed, no one would never say boo to a goose, to this radical, aggressive, generation of young people marching up and down the streets, shouting for the eradication of Israel. So that has been a feature of their strategy. And it's a strategy that's worked in the United Kingdom. It's worked across Western Europe because they've done the same there. And it's clearly working in the United States. And they bribed the institutions and bribed representatives of the institutions with money, with resources, with power. And it takes a certain individual, doesn't it, who can look at money and say, I don't want it, or I don't need it, or it's not worth it. Not everyone will do that. And I've learned this on this journey myself. I was arrested. One of the times I was arrested was because I objected to the attack on a factory that was owned by a Jewish firm. And they smashed the windows, daubed it with red paint. And I made reference to, actually, this wasn't just the smashing of windows. What these people were doing was trying to demonstrate, a reenactment of Kristallnacht. It meant more than just smashing a window. And I said, look, it's no different than if it was a mosque and someone posted a ham or a pig's head through the letterbox or something. The symbolism is more significant than just the crime itself. The police arrested me and said I was anti-Semitic.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
They'd never spoken to a Jewish person, nothing. The case collapsed in court. Well, that's by the by. Yes. But what I'm trying to share with you is that whilst we are fighting amongst ourselves, these people have got money. They know how to use that money to infiltrate, and I think infiltrate is the right word, the communities that they want to expand their power base. They also have the resources to buy and silence those that they need to buy and silence. And that's what you're sharing with me. And what I'll ask you, and what I ask everyone who's listening to is, well, then what is the next step? What will they want? And I say, look to New York and look to see what will now happen in New York. And you will understand very well what the next step is, because the next step is these people will and have and will continue to do so, use our democracy against us.
That's right. Let me ask you this. If you were to look at New York City 18 months from now, because he doesn't take office for another couple of months, 18 months from now, what do you think New York City looks like?
Come to London.
Come to London.
Come to London. come to London and see the hellhole it has become. I take my daughter every Christmas to London to a place around a place called Covent Garden. It's like it's like a refuge in London, and all the other parts of London that I would historically go to. There is not a chance in hell I would take a child around Berwick and come to London. Come to London and see what they've done to the city.
You know,
And then they cover it up, and then they pretend it's all great. And anyone who speaks out is somehow the racist or the extremist. Come to London. I urge any of your viewers, come to London and see what they've done. Not just the tourist bits that they want you to see. Come and spend some time in London and see what happens.
Raja, a couple of questions about that. You know, I try to only confirm things by means of I've seen it for myself, right? Because everything other than that is just an opinion. So I can't confirm this. I've been to London one time in my life, and it was many, many years ago, probably 30 years ago. And that's when I talk about yesterday, you know. There are reports and various books written that there are literal no-go zones in London to where unless you are Muslim, and I wonder even if you at this point would be allowed, but that you do not try to go. If you do, you may not get out in one piece. Is that an exaggeration, or is that really taking place?
The concept of no-go zones is entirely designed to make, first and foremost, to make people feel uncomfortable going there in the first place and unwelcome. You know, so that's and if you said to me, are there places that you would feel uncomfortable or unwelcome in London going? 100%. If one of my American friends came over and said to me, Raj, I'm thinking of going to such and such, I'd say to him, no, don't. Because you'd be placing yourself at risk. Why would you? This isn't about them going after your watch or anything like that. You would be, because of what you look like, you would be out of the ordinary and you'd be placing yourself at risk. And if you would then have to dress and conform in a way to minimize that risk. And then my point would be, hold on. So now we are having to adapt the way we look, the way we dress, the way we behave to accommodate an alien culture that did not belong in this place, in this country in the first place.
Would you not have
You're a racist, you know?
Of course, you're a racist. It's the greatest go-to word ever. Do you? The only thing worse than a racist is being accused of being a child molester. And the crazy thing is, in the UK, they're not calling the child molesters, right? Oh, it's just their culture. But let's go back to something that you just said. If you took me to a so-called no-go zone, let's just call it that, would we not have the protection of the police?
Because the police have given up on those areas.
Yeah.
And and what I'm describing London, you go to parts of Paris, it's the same. You go to parts of Amsterdam, it's the same. You've seen it where a wave of immigration has took place. It's brought in it. I shared the story with you at the beginning of, and I think what I was trying to convey was two things. One was my family culturally were aligned to this country. You know, we thought we belonged here. We're serving, we're contributing here. And secondly was we contribute. I work on, my entire family works, we contribute, we're upstanding citizens. There's a wave of immigration that took place in the 90s into 2000 across Europe where we let our guard down, or it was intentional. And I think in hindsight, I reflect on it, it was intentional. And we've changed the demographic balance. And we've took in too many people from too many places who hate us. And what do you think is going to happen?
Of course. You said something in the beginning of the interview here. I mean, I got to ask why. You said that you question your Muslim faith and whether or not you should, unless I misinterpreted what you said, but you questioned whether or not if the Muslim faith is still for you. If that's accurate, explain to me why.
I question the Islam I was raised with was one where you went to the mosque and you did good things in the community. It's a very simple form of faith, and the faith made me and all the people around me better citizens and contributing to the communities around us. It's no different than the elderly people who I share an apartment block with who go to church on a Sunday. You know, they find solace in church, and they take the lessons of, you know, the lessons from the Bible, and they are better people because of it. Now, I'm not saying you've got to be religious to be a better person, but some people find that comfort in faith, and then they go on and contribute and be more effective.
Okay.
The more I see Islam in the country where I am, the political form of it, it's angry, it's aggressive, it's confrontational, and it is in conflict with the very values of the nation. And we will have to have that conversation and face that challenge within the next 5 years or so, I think, you know, next decade at the most, or we will lose because we'll lose through demographics, Dennis.
You know, I always bring up this story. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but in the early 2000s, we had a trial here in the United States, one of the biggest trials we ever had, governmental trial. It was called the Holy Land Foundation. And it was a government movement to show that radical Islam was being funded by certain actors. And the Muslim Brotherhood was one of those. And the FBI uncovered documentation where the Muslim Brotherhood said the way to take over America is from within. You take over the government, you take over the businesses, you take over the basic culture, you take over the school, the kids. And I feel as if that's happening in real time. What do you say about the Muslim Brotherhood? I mean, should that be designated as a terrorist organization here in the United States? Because Trump hasn't done it yet.
It's such an easy thing to do, isn't it?
It is.
You know, it's such an easy thing to do because the Muslim Brotherhood themselves are despised by the very Muslim states that we consider to be our partners. So the fact that these places see radical Islam for what it is and want nothing to do with it, yet we somehow are hesitant, or we don't do things like that in our democracy. These people will use, and they're not even hiding, are they? They've published their roadmap. This is what we're going to do. These are the steps we're going to, you know, to take to achieve our aim. And we're like, oh no, they won't be doing that. No, they won't. Of course they are. The Muslim Brotherhood should have been banned a long time ago. And not just that, I wouldn't even stop that. I'd go further. There's the entire Islamic infrastructure, the mosques, the community centers we have in the United Kingdom. We'll have a similar infrastructure in the United States. We need to look at what they are teaching, and we need to say certain things are off the table. And I don't care. I don't care if it upsets your religious beliefs or your religious values. We need to have the confidence to say certain beliefs, certain traditions, certain practices are off the table. And actually, you amongst yourselves need to have a conversation, a debate in open about some of the things that are in the Quran, in the Hadiths, that are in open conflict with Western beliefs and Western values.
One of the things that
you said, you said you'd pick a side. You know, you gave me the analogy with your $100 and you'd pick the American children before. You know, yeah. I've already picked a side, and it's to my nation.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear you 100%. There's a phrase, and I want to make sure I'm saying it correct. Is it called takia? Where
they pretend to be on the side but really do something else, yeah?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of people have accused Mandami of takia, and where it is that in the Quran, it teaches that you can, I'll summarize it by say, lie, cheat, and steal if it is in advancing the religion of Islam. And is that a real thing? And do you believe it's being used on a daily basis? I mean, I think it's being used today as Trump is sitting with the with an Al Qaeda operative. I just think we're being tricked.
He's not reformed, is he? The Syrian lad isn't. You know, he's an Al Qaeda general responsible for massacres, yeah, war crimes, unequivocal war crimes, but remember in the 90s when we portrayed the Taliban as some sort of progressive partners. Yeah, there was, the last time I saw one of the Rocky movies, not the Rocky, one of the Rambo movies, whichever one it was, and they were portrayed as allies and partners. These people, I fell out with the government, with the Home Office, around the time of 2010 or so, and at the time we were sending Libyan children, young people, 15, 16, 17, 18, on weekend trips and during the school holidays, to go and fight with the Al-Nusra Front, which is an offshoot of Al-Qaeda against Colonel Gaddafi. Remember when they overthrew Gaddafi? Yeah?
Sure.
I remember having conversations with Oxford graduate MI, security services people, let's say, and they were quoting The Art of War at me, like these people do. Like, our enemy's enemy is our friend, Raja. I'm like, you've never met any of these people, because if you met these people, you'd know that they're no friends of ours. Fast forward a few years, these people blew up. The kids we were sending over to Libya, that very network were responsible for blowing up Manchester Arena, where Ariana Grande was performing, and so many children died. We think we can do deals with these people. We think we are smarter than these people, that we are not going to be able to do any deals with these people. And however smart we are, these people have been doing what they've been doing for 1,000 years.
Well, that's one of the things I always say, Raja, is that, so you're confirming to me that the Kia is real. And what I have said is that, and I don't know if the UK is the same. I would imagine you would be. The culture that we have here is that if you're online for McDonald's, you're online for Starbucks, and it's taking 5 minutes too long to get your meal, everybody's throwing their hands up in the air, should have been ready in a nanosecond. Our culture has become one that expects to have results immediately, whereas the enemy, and in this case is radical Islam, understands that that's one of our weaknesses. And so what they do is they penetrate that weakness. They are willing to wait and wait and wait to strike and get what they want. We don't understand that mentality anymore. You're confirming to me that that is what is indeed happening. I got two more. Go ahead.
And I agreed, and also how we expect instant results, and how that's a weakness in our political movement. The way the rape gang story broke in the United Kingdom was through 6 years of us campaigning. It wasn't going on a march. It wasn't us writing one letter. 6 years of relentless campaigning, where I'm in and out of prison cells, on bail for 3 years. My mother passed away whilst I was still being tried for crimes I never committed. So those are the sacrifices we have to make. If you come into this fight, be prepared to fight, and know we're going to have to devote ourselves to it, because if we don't do this, they will. And they also have their interpretation of God on their side. They have their interpretation of what they believe to be paradise. So they're willing to make those sacrifices.
Raja,
you're talking about our Starbucks, and our Starbucks hasn't arrived on time.
I'm with you. Look, you're talking to a guy who for 20 years has been fighting and making films and going on TV and doing everything I possibly can to warn about secure borders and not having them, what it means. And finally, there's some tangible steps, isn't there? Some tangible steps that are within the authority of the leaders we've elected, who we elected to represent us, because the other side were on the wrong side. There's some tangible steps they can do. Secure the bloody borders, deport the foreign criminals, make sure that we no more retreat to the radical expansion of that political form of Islam. It's not difficult. No, and that's why so my fight, sort of like your fight, mine has started to overlap. So in the very beginning, when I was fighting like the Dickens for a secure border, I also started to recognize the dangers of having mass, unvetted, legal migration into the country. And now, although I've got my border secure, I've always been more concerned about the fact that the United States is taking in 1.2 to 1.9 million people a year from countries that hate us. We do lottery, migration, to where we put names in a bin and spinning them around and pull them out of a hat. I mean, we're giving away our citizenship like it comes out of a Happy Meal. And I've been screaming this, and now I'm seeing it with the Mamdani, and I'm seeing it in Dearborn, and I'm seeing it in Houston, what it is that's happening from this mass migration. People are only waking up to it now. And I this time I'm going to scream, I don't got 20 years again to fight this fight. First of all, I'm aging out. And second of all is in 20 years, we won't know our nation. We've got to do this immediately. So my last two questions to you, and then I want you to tell people how they can follow you. When you look at what it is that we are facing as nations, UK and the US, you seem to be further down the rat hole than we are. But again, we're bigger and the whole world revolves around us. And I believe now that the Muslims have London and they have New York City, to them, everything now is just going to be, it's all in line. Just rinse and repeat, and we take it over a lot faster than what it is that we got, which is London and the US. Do you believe that this will start to happen in an expedited way to where people are going to look up every day and say, what the hell just happened? How did this happen?
A domino effect, 100%, because it gives them confidence. London, New York, these aren't just cities in my country or your country. These are cities on the world stage. Sadiq Khan has used London to promote a perception of this multicultural utopia and hiding a lot of the stuff that's took place. Your guy will do the same. And then they will use those as platforms, as bases to build and expand. And what they've got going for them is that we've got on one side, a political right that is at war with itself, where its leaders won't, go so far and then won't go the hard yards, in my opinion. Yep. You've got a left that hates us on the right, so they'll get in bed with anyone because they hate us. And then what you've got is they control the institutions. In my country, they control the institutions, the BBC, the newspapers. I'm having this conversation with you. I'm blacklisted in my own country.
Yeah. I mean, the last question I was going to come to you with is maybe the hardest question of all, but one that I'm sure you're ready to answer because you're in this fight for as long as you are. And before I ask it, I just want to say that you have been a phenomenal guest and better than I even was hoping for. And I appreciate all that you do. So here's the last question to you. You brought out in the beginning, let me say it this way. If there was a radical Islamic in front of us right now, and he had only one bullet, he could either go at me or he could go at you. He's going to shoot you.
He'll take me out first.
You're the worst infidel there is, right? You're the Muslim who is now speaking bad about the Muslims. And
by taking me out, it sends a message to the other Muslims in the communities who this is what happens to you. Look what Hamas are doing in right now in Gaza.
Yes.
Look, who are they taking out? They're not taking out the Jews. They're not taking out the Israelis. They're taking out the Muslim dissidents.
Absolutely. That's how dangerous it is. So you're the first infidel. I'm the second infidel. And so knowing the fact that you have a target on your head, what do you say is the solution? Because one thing that I always hear from my audience is, okay, you just highlighted the problem. I thought the problem was a 5. You've brought it to me. Now it's a 10. What do I do? What can I do? Because as much as you've been fighting, people will look at the UK and say, well, they're still raping kids and they're still out there, taking over the country. And they'll say, Dennis, even though you stopped the border from being, you did your part in getting the border to stop being, a sieve. Look what's happening to New York. What is it that we can do?
We have got to use democracy in the same way they have infiltrated democracy. We've got to get behind our leaders. We've got to have people who are true to their convictions, and we've got to back them. We've got to back them, and we've got to come forward with a manifesto, with pledges, and people get bored, Raja, it's politics. This is a political solution, because if it's not a political solution, we're fighting on the streets, and I'm sorry, Dennis, the police will be beating us up more than they're beating the other lot up. They'll be killing our side, and it's been proven in the United Kingdom. Yeah, The two-tier justice system is alive and kicking, and I don't think it'd be any less. Our institutions have been hijacked. We need to accept the truth for what it is. We are at war. This is a fight between good and evil, and it manifests itself in different ways. So it manifests itself through the industrial scale gang rape of children in my country. But actually, I don't mean it's more important, but there's a deeper, more underlying reason as to why this cancer has spread. And that's because we've allowed this extremist form ideology to infiltrate our nations, and we have to fight back. And to fight back, the first thing you do to fight back is you know who the enemy is.
Raja, I want to say thank you so much for being with me today. How is it that people can learn more about you, and how is it that they can follow you online?
Please, the more, and this is how we win, by growing our audience. It's simple. X, I'm on X, recusant_Raja. Type in my name, Raja Miah, I'll come up. You'll see I'll come up there. And I have a webpage. It's just a newsletter. I share it with the people of this country in the United Kingdom. And we've made a massive difference. The politicians are petrified of people like me because we understand the rules of the game. We were trained by them, and we're using the very tactics that they trained me in to fight back against them. And it's called Red Wall and the Rabble. They called us rabble because they wanted to dismiss us. Well, we've exposed this for what it is. And the Red Wall is the area they control. It was like the impenetrable Red Wall. So redwallandtherabble.co.uk, you can find me. I'll just type my name in X. And please support me, support you, and we need to come together on this, because what's happening here is what's happening there. And the more partnerships we have, the better we can fight back, because they don't see it as one country or another. They're fighting across against what you and I would call Western civilization.
Your name is spelled Rajamiah. And
yes,
I just want to say that if you are ever in the U.S. and you don't look me up, you're going to have to worry more about me than any of the Islamic
No,
fanatics.
I'll come and see you, brother. I used to come all the time. I'll come and see you. It'll be my pleasure.
Right. And we will have you back again. I appreciate what you do in a big way. Thank you so much, Raja.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Well, if that interview doesn't open your eyes to what it is we're facing, I don't know what will. And so I want to say thank you in a huge way for Raja being with me today. I think you should follow him online. It's always good to hear the perspective of these people who don't live in the U.S. but are being subjected to the same crap we see happening. So that is part of Team DML, and that is part of what we're doing here. We are highlighting the issues and trying to offer solutions. And so please give that man a follow. Stay in touch with what it is he's saying. You know I will be, and I'll be giving it to you here on the show all the time. That's it for us today. God willing, we'll see you again tomorrow. Make sure you hit the share button. Don't forget, if you don't share, you don't care. Don't make us do this fight alone. You're in it with us. We've got to fight for America every single day. We've got to fight for your kids, my kids, our grandkids, and we have to fight for ourselves. Until the next time, may God bless you. May God bless the United States of America. And may God bless Raja Miah for being a brave, brave man. We'll talk to you soon.
Get the Dennis Michael Lynch podcast every day by subscribing on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and download the DML News app from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store for breaking news, merchandise, films, exclusive content, and Team DML.